It seems quite obvious to say, but men are different from women. Scientists say that men spend an average of 30 minutes per night experiencing what are called nocturnal penile tumescence. Most of us know what that means, and if you don't, we'll actually talk about that a little bit later. But think about the words nocturnal and penile. Women don't have that experience. Men also carry greater physical mass, have different sleep needs, and require different types of socialization to better care for their mental and physical health. So, how do young men coming into adulthood know about how to take care of themselves? How should they treat these differences and be able to maximize their full potential? So today, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to look at the rough and tumble side of self-care from a man's perspective, talking with men, right? So my name is Jermaine McDonald, and I'm your guide today on the Big People Things show, where we talk about how to be a successful adult. I'm sitting in for my friend Trisha, and she felt a bit squeamish talking on camera with some of the topics that we're going to be talking about today. And she'll be back next week. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and so you can be notified when we release new content. So our first guest for today is Dr. Jermaine White, a lecturer at the University of West Indies Mona campus in the Faculty of Medical Sciences, as well as a private physician and surgeon at the Crossroads Medical Specialist and Diagnostic Center. He also provides treatment for men in our prison system. And Dr. White, I'm going to ask you to define that word that I mentioned at the start. We'll get into that after we introduce our next guest. Our other special guest is Andrew Foster, a certified personal fitness trainer and instructor specializing in sports science, body kinetics, and conditioning. Andrew's dedication to the study of martial arts and from childhood has resulted in a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo. Hopefully I pronounced that right, Andrew. You can let me know.
Almost there.
He's also trained in Shotokan, karate, jiu-jitsu, and kickboxing. So Andrew, we need to talk about that because I practiced martial arts for a little bit. I stopped at my yellow belt. Maybe I should. I've always thought about going all the way. So maybe we can talk there. So Jermaine and Andrew, welcome to the show. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jermaine.
Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor.
Hi, Andrew.
Yes, Sir Jermaine. Dr. White.
So Dr. White, we have to define that term that I mentioned, right? So it's called nocturnal penile tumescence. Can you define that for us before we get into the show?
Well, thanks, Jermaine, my namesake. I should call you Jermaine one, right?
Yes, please do.
That's a lovely question, and honestly, I can say, well, first and foremost, this is a very important topic for us to actually be talking about some of these things concerning men's health and just clarifying some things, because I'm sure a lot of persons, when they hear the term nocturnal penile tumescence, they're probably thinking about nocturnal emission. It kind of sounds pretty similar, right?
I know that's what I thought the very first time. Yeah.
Yeah, and to differentiate the two, nocturnal emission is actually when you experience an ejaculatory event during sleep, right? Hence the name nocturnal emission. And nocturnal penile tumescence is the experiencing of an erection during sleep. And it's oftentimes encountered in deep sleep, REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, and is also quite more familiarly known as morning wood,
Okay.
pitching tent. You're waking up in the morning, so it can be
I've
experienced.
heard the pitching tent one. That definitely I've heard that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
that's normal though, right? That's something that every man goes
absolutely
through.
normal. absolutely normal. As long as there isn't like a pathology, like a disease, like
Mhm.
erectile dysfunction, men who have a healthy reproductive system should experience this phenomena quite often. As a matter of fact, it can last for quite a while, you know.
Okay, okay. So guys, it's normal. Don't be shamed to, feeling that this is something that you should not be experiencing. All right? Cool. So thank you for that. So Andrew, I'll ask you to start. What kind of attitude does a man need to internalize to help him build and maintain consistent good health in his body?
Well, firstly, um, we men we tend to think that we have it all under control. We don't need any addition to what we know, right? And what we know that we know, and that's where it's supposed to stay, right? But the truth is that we're made biologically, we're made a certain way, and our emotions and our mind work together, and it can affect physically how we behave, right? And whether it be how we behave, our body reacts involuntarily because of our emotions, or we can decide to, based on the fact that we do a self assessment of where we are emotionally, where we are mentally, and then we decide that okay, we're going to do something physical about it, right? So first of all, the first approach is to understand that we don't have all the answers, right? And then from there, we have to admit that we don't have all the answers. And then from there, we venture into seeking out assistance, seeking out help, right? So we don't have the answers. So where are we going to get the answers from, right? And that's where we start from, right? And then we go into taking advice, right? So um, I'm sure that the doctor has seen patients come in, and there are certain physical ailments that they say they're experiencing, but it may seem as though there is no logical or even medical explanation, physical explanation to why the patient is feeling this way. May want to consider emotional issues, right? Because
Yeah.
emotions
I-
can affect your physical as well. For
If I
example,
may interject there,
Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
Jermaine, Andrew, that's absolutely important, bro, because one of the things that we see, even from the medical perspective, and it ties so neatly into what you just said, we alone we cannot do everything. And the first stage in getting help is understanding that I am limited and actually accepting that fact and then seeking help. And that's one of the greatest challenges we find as men because we are grown to be tough and strong and but there's a saying that says no man is an island, no man stands alone. And
Yeah.
it's so important for us to not carry these things, not carry the burdens because they do affect us physically, right? These are some of the things that causes prolonged stress. There are different types of stress, but the bad stress causes our blood pressures to raise. It can cause our blood sugars to go up as well. And then these things affect us in various ways. So I mean, bro, as you said, Andrew, that's golden right there.
Do you think
and just
that
and just to piggyback onto what you said about the emotion affecting it also throws or can throw off or pH balance, right?
Hmm.
Where you gone from alkaline to acidic or vice versa, it can throw it off and affect the way we always sleep. It
Hmm.
can give us
Yep.
indigestion. It can give us
Hmm.
ulcers. So
Yep.
these are involuntary. This is just natural response. Our body's natural response to, as you put it, bad stress.
And wouldn't you agree that for that very same reason, Andrew, it's so important for us to have an outlet, a healthy outlet,
Yes.
right? Because a
Yes.
lot of times, and this is where a lot of the addictive practices begins, when we don't know how to cope, a man start lighting a cigarette, a man goes and have a drink of some hard liquor, to try and drown out the sorrows. But that's just
Yes.
one way of dealing with it, and unfortunately, I would say a toxic, normalized pattern that we have in society. But there are
Yes.
healthy ways that we can deal with these emotions in terms of talking but also other physical activities. Right, Andrew?
I
Right.
think it
Absolutely.
starts from, so when I was growing up, I know it I didn't really necessarily feel like it was okay to express the emotions that seemed to be sensitive or not manly in nature. It almost feels like the only emotions that were accepted were ones like anger or aggression or anything that would at least make me appear to be accepted as a man. And it actually feeds into the next question that I have here, and I'll point this to you again, Andrew. Do you think that mental and emotional challenges, I mean, and we touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to talk about from the perspective that, do men really think it's okay to talk about the emotional challenges that they're experiencing? Because maybe it is, for example, I'm stressed out because of my responsibilities. Maybe I'm not coping well with some form of life change that I've had. So, do you see these, just the ability to deal with the emotions that we experience as men that are natural? Do you see this, also, having an impact on our physical health ultimately?
Yeah, I agree. It does. Um, the thing is that as we started out, we alluded to the fact that we need to first of all be at that place where we admit that we don't have all the answers, right? Right. So our emotions are going to come out in different ways, okay? And it's going to come out at some point in different ways, right? And if you bottle up the emotions, it's going to come out naturally. It's going to come out in our system, right? It's going to come out through as we said before, you having also, for example, right? It's kind of like filling a balloon with water, expecting it to not burst, right? It
Yeah.
is going to come out at some point. You'll find an outlet. So you now have to determine what is that outlet. You would have to take charge now, and you're going to admit emotion issues are there, or there you're not dealing with certain things um, in a healthy way, and so you're now making a choice that you're going to find an outlet, find a way to deal with it, right? If it's even go to somewhere and punch and kick a bag, okay, a bag, guys, a bag, right? For example.
That actually is pointing me to another question, right? So you're a trainer, Andrew. Gym is good, right? But can we actually look at some alternatives to gym life, right? Because maybe the gym is not for everyone. So what sort of things that men can do to take advantage of keeping themselves in good health?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jeremy, because gone are the days in Jamaica, in times gone by, when you mention workout, first place to come to person's mind is gym and
Yeah.
weights. And sometimes, even stepping out from the men, sometimes when women hear that themselves, oh, weights, they want to get tough. You know what I mean? But Jamaica has evolved and is evolving. We're caught up with the whole wellness
Yes.
lifestyle. We're open to different types of physical activities, healthy physical activities, such as you have plyometrics, you have calisthenics. You don't need weight gym to do that. You have martial arts you can practice in. You have even a slow walk helps you to clear your head, right?
Yeah.
Even out in nature, especially out in nature, helps you to clear your head. You know, the dynamic, the parkour, the dynamics is just wide now, wide. And if it is a case where our own knowledge is limited, we just jump on the internet and get a little more education as to the options that you have. And here in Jamaica, you do have persons who can facilitate that type of training. You know what I mean? So you don't have
Yeah.
to be limited to gym life, right? There are sporting activities you can take up, right? There is football. Most persons I know, I'm not really a big football person, right? right? But most persons I know into football, right? You have table tennis. Table tennis is a sport I took up recently, and I can tell you, you can play table tennis well into your years. Persons
Yeah.
that I meet in the table tennis arena, they've been playing it for over 3 decades. They're playing it. These are men in
Yeah.
their 70s, 60s, and you can move faster than these men on a table tennis board. Off the board is a different case, but on the board, yeah,
So what I'm hearing you saying is the point is just be active. And I know for persons like myself that are in IT where we spend maybe 8 to 10 hours per day behind a desk, behind our computers, it's important to just move, right? Move around. And where it relates to being active, it really does a lot to, clear the mind. I remember a few weeks ago, I felt like I just couldn't handle everything that was happening around me. I went to speak with my mentor. After listening to me for about an hour, just I felt like I was just pouring out everything that I had to him. He smiled and he's like, "Well, Jermaine, it sounds like you need a friend." So because what he was saying to me is that it's not necessarily that I'm dealing with anything that is uncommon, right? So he quoted a very popular Bible verse to me, that there's nothing that is tempting me that is uncommon to others. And it after speaking with him, it really put things into perspective for me, because sometimes I'm sacrificing friendships for work, or I'm sacrificing my personal time because of this mindset that I need to provide for my family first. And I'm doing all these things for my family, for my job, and I'm not really prioritizing my personal, mental, and the things that really would ensure that I'm able to do the
you
things.
can say German, personal, mental, and emotional.
Yes, emotional health. Yes,
You guys
yes.
yes.
So even that, it's sometimes like hard to say because the word emotional just feels, yeah,
But
yeah,
I wanted just add my 2 cents to this specific aspect of the conversation, if I may. And I love the fact that you said it was a bit challenging to even acknowledge the emotional aspect of it, and you'd be surprised to know how much of the emotional aspect, how it supersedes almost everything else. It has such an overarching influence on the physical, on the mental, on the spiritual, even because as you rightfully said, your mentor, you reached out to someone beyond just yourself, so you
yeah,
acknowledge that you alone you can't do this. And
Mm.
the interesting thing is when you look at when you go through, you do any random search and look at the most popular events or conditions that affect men, young men, teenagers nowadays, you'll realize that at the top of that list is anger management. At the top of
yeah,
that list is uh, depression, suicide, right? And all of these things are linked. It comes back to the emotions. It comes back to actually being able to understand your emotion, decipher what is happening, and just channel that in such a way that you are able to make sense of it. Now, speaking from the medical perspective, in child psychology, one of the earliest signs of depression, which is one of the leading health problems in men, one of the earliest signs of depression in children is actually anger and acting out. Can you guys believe that? Acting out
Mm.
interesting.
is the
Yeah,
earliest sign of depression. When you see a child becomes aggressive and they start to fight at school, before reprimanding the child, try to find out what's happening at home. A lot of times, the simple act of not having a father at home, someone who they can identify with and share their problems with. Because as much as we've heard the saying, the mother that fathered me, a mother can never father a child. I'm sorry. And I'm not being sexist or misogynist or anything, because there's a difference when men connect.
yeah,
And so it's very important to have a community and someone that you can lean on and someone who you can bounce your ideas off and help you to decipher that, boy, you're feeling angry, but what I'm actually feeling is not anger, it's actually sadness. Because the same
yeah,
part of the brain that uh, processes anger is the same part of the brain that processes sadness. It's called the amygdala. right? It's a part of your limbic system, which is called your emotional brain, right? And so your emotional brain is considered your primitive brain, and so anger, uh, sadness, even sexual excitation and satiety, the ability to feel filled when you've eaten, or when when you've had, even engaged in sexual encounters. This is also one of the reasons why the coping mechanisms before these problems oftentimes entail eating disorders,
Yeah.
often entail disorders where, the sedentary lifestyle, where you just lack the ability or the energy to engage in some of these physical activities that Andrew was just mentioning. And also one of the reasons why some people use even sex to cope, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the emotional thing, a lot of times it's almost like taboo, but it also has to do with our socialization, in that we were brought up as young men. Something hurt us when we were younger. Well, yeah, ball for tapping eyes, yeah, big man. Until
Listen,
you learn to.
I grew up in a house with my mom and two sisters. So I was told many times that I'm too soft. I need to,
Exactly.
why am I acting that way?
Yeah,
And for a
man up.
long time, I didn't know that it was okay to feel certain emotions, right? To feel like I want to cry, like something that simple.
And to cry.
It felt like something that meant that I was weak, or that there's something wrong with me. So
Yeah, yeah, I do agree. And so it's one of the reasons why, things like big people things, we really need to have these discussions, right? For us to understand that it is natural and okay. It's human. It's
yeah,
human. It's human if you lose a friend or a loved one to cry. You don't need to be strong for anyone. But there's a verse in the Bible I love as well. It says there's a time and place for everything under the sun. Like literally, there is a time to cry and a time to refrain from crying. So the truth of the matter is, we all need to just acknowledge that, hey, it is okay at times to
yeah,
even not be okay, but seek help.
yeah. Let's talk about a little bit of the physical side, right? So Jeremy, I'll be leaning on you for these questions. So what are some of the, or let's start with one. What's one of the major issues that doctors see men come in for in terms of treatment, right? Something that maybe is more to do with a lifestyle issue, and
Mm.
what are some of those adjustments that they could make?
Okay, so a lot of times when we get patients coming before us, they normally come for a complaint, and these complaints are usually, they range. And I'm saying it this way, I'm responding this way because it can be the pressures are up, it could be that they're not sleeping, it could be that their sexual life, or the sex life isn't, as we can, isn't as it used to be. It could be that the blood sugars are high. It could be that they're just having this chronic pain in the shoulder and they just need something. And then a lot of times when taking the history, we have to do what's called a psychosocial history, where we get, for example, are you sleeping well? How, are there any stressors? And almost always, 99% of the time, there's always something that is there, some issue, matrimonial issues, some relationship problems, some issues at work. They're not sleeping, they're not eating well, because as they're so concerned about providing for their family, that it's almost like their own needs are being neglected or sacrificed, um, or they're just not coping, full stop. And so at the basis of a lot of these physical ailments, you will find that they are trying so hard to hold the fortress together, right? And it's almost as if they're failing. They recognize that they're failing, and they're trying not to fail, and it goes into this never-ending cycle. So at the root of a lot of it are some lifestyle changes, like or needs that are, quite simple, like getting sleep, like
Yeah,
actually eating your lunch at the designated lunchtime, having dinner not at 10 o'clock in the night, but probably 7, 8 o'clock in the night, if that late. Uh, Drinking water. Like some things are so simple. Like,
I,
hey,
I'll just say, for those who don't know the importance of drinking water, I recently had to deal with a kidney stone.
oh,
Water is now my best friend. So
What?
it's something that you don't think will ever happen to you. You're like, they're just trying to sell more water. That's why they want me
Hmm.
to drink more water.
Hmm.
But it's well, Jermaine, you can describe, you as a doctor, the pain, put into context the type of pain that a kidney stone can bring. I think
So
persons would
it,
be interested in
it's sort of funny because it's almost like you jumped off in my chest a while ago because I had a similar experience and I had to learn to actually take the advice that I give my patients,
that. Yeah.
right? Um, and I'll have you know that a kidney stone, the pain from a kidney stone, is one of the four most or the four worst pains a human being can endure. Child,
Male or
child,
female?
human being. So childbirth is one, having a heart attack is two, having a dissecting aortic aneurysm is three,
Wow.
and four is having a kidney stone,
Kidney
renal
stone.
colic,
Wow.
right? And so it is excruciating pain. Pain will have a big man bawling like a baby, so you don't even business about emotions and acknowledging emotions. You're gonna cry, and it causes nausea and vomiting, and you're unable to stay still. And that's because, and
Yeah.
sometimes the stones are so small, and it's as painful coming down from the kidneys going to the bladder as it is as painful
Listen,
being
Jermaine,
passed.
Jermaine, when that stone passed, I looked at it and I said, this was the source of, like, this was the thorn in my side. Like,
And
it
it's a
was, it's
small thing.
very, very small thing, but it's something where I grew up not liking the taste of water, right? That's just the honest truth. And so I drank a lot of juice, but I wasn't drinking in general. Meaning,
Mhm,
sometimes there'll be days before I drink a glass of water,
mhm.
and just when the
Wow.
pain first started, I had to kind of break myself into this routine of just drinking water. And
Mhm,
sometimes I found that when I felt peckish or hungry, drinking water actually was fine. So I didn't need to
mhm.
eat to the same volume that I was eating because maybe I just needed to drink some water. So
Yeah. There's a saying in Jamaica that hunger and water are poison, but that's not true, right? And water is so important. I learned it. I remember this happened to me, I think in 2016. I was doing a lot of surgeries back to back. I mean, 18 hours, 19-hour surgeries, and on consecutive days. And so when you're in surgery, you can't scrub out and go drink water and come back. You have to stay in the entire time. Any physiological needs you have to just hold it until the surgery is done. And I remembered I was also not eating, and so a lot of these things that I encourage people to do, also I do this not just from a medical perspective, but from my own personal experience. Because I remember that I had gastritis and I was taking Tums foolishly, which is
wow,
practically calcium supplements. And even though they're antacids and they did the job, I precipitated a calcium stone, and it was not pretty, right? And so that combination of poor hydration with poor dieting really did a number on me. And so we really have to take our health into consideration. And even so much so when we understand what our family history is. So, for example, if we know that we have a family history of having kidney stones, for example, you need to ensure that you're on the ball. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Hypertension, diabetes, you need to face the music and just get your pressures checked because you know there's this thing to say, if you don't know what you don't know won't hurt you. That's farthest from the truth.
that's definitely not
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely not true. So that saying of what you don't know won't hurt you, I think that's why I see some men in my life not want to go to the doctor, because
Yeah.
if they don't hear the diagnosis, then it
It's
will
like it
actually make them live
non-existent.
longer.
Oh.
You go with. You
Seriously,
go with.
it's just what I've seen. And for a long time, I used to actually, be proud to say, I don't need to go to the doctor. So for many years, when my wife was doing her checkups, I was like, I'm good.
Hmm.
I take
Hmm.
care of myself.
Hmm.
And in the last couple of years, it's just been different because all the things that were actually bad habits, they caught up. So
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
I'm the one who has to take the steps to ensure that, I'm well again. I wanted to
And
touch on as well, Jermaine,
sure.
in terms of now, there's a question that I think, or at least growing up, I would have wanted to understand, this part about myself. So in terms of as a man, how should I know if I'm healthy in terms of, well, let me phrase it this way. What should a healthy penis look like,
Okay.
smell, or maybe feel like?
Okay.
It's a kind of a question that men maybe don't ask, but I think
Mhm.
there may be some young men out there wanting to understand whether or not they are normal or everything is okay in that regard.
And that's quite fine. And we have a society where your a man's penis is considered his glory or his shame, right? And I say this
Yeah,
in and I'm just gonna speak very plainly and very openly. There are two things that we must know. One is that no penis is the same. So physiologically, we have a general idea, but there are penises that are large and then there are some that are small. It is said that you have men who are growers, which means that when the penis is in the flaccid state, when you're not erect, when you're not standing up, right, you are actually, you appear smaller, right? And then when you get excited, it grows like Thundercats. And I don't know if many of you remember that cartoon. It grows longer and broader, right? And then there are the showers, which means that you are already at the length and the girth of what the penis would look like on a normal circumstance. And then when it gets excited, all it does is it stands up. It moves from the lying down position, the flaccid position, to the erect position. So there are just two things that we need to know, because sometimes I've had patients come in and they are so distraught because their penises are small. But then when you ask the question, hey, when you get an erection, does your penis change the size? And I say, yeah, man, of course. And so they always try to walk around being excited, and that's not okay. So understanding that there are physiological differences is very important in actually just being at peace. So you can be a grower and you can be a shower. That's okay. The second thing is that we have persons who are circumcised and persons who are uncircumcised. And what does circumcision mean? Circumcision means that the foreskin, the little flap of skin that is right above or covering the penis head, there are some persons who, for health reasons, for religious reasons, would have that skin removed, right? It's called the foreskin. That skin will
yeah.
be removed. And so some persons will have a penis looking like a bullet. Some people will have a penis looking like it's in a sack, right? And so if you're circumcised or uncircumcised, then, there is a difference there. One, the head of the penis will always be exposed. And with the uncircumcised patient, the skin will always be covering the penis, so you have to roll it back, and other things. There are various reasons why people would go and engage in circumcision, because it can be for health reason, it can be when you're engaging in sexual activities, you get bruising and tears, and that can cause infections. And even with respect to hygiene, right, a lot of times men can neglect rolling back the penis, and so you get a lot of what we call body cheese, the
Ah,
smegma that is there inside the foreskin, between the foreskin and the head of the penis. A lot of times you have to roll it back and wipe that off, and not doing that can actually put you at risk for developing things like cancer of the penis, right? So let me just put that
okay.
out there. So hygiene is very important. So there are some persons who they have the circumcision to avoid all of that. So you have easier access to the head of the penis, the glands of the penis. You can clean it off quite easily. And it is even thought to be a protective mechanism for some things, which I won't just disclose here because I don't want to be irresponsible and promote certain things. But the truth of the matter is, you can be small or large. You can have the foreskin on, or you don't have the foreskin. But then, what does the penis normally looks like? It's usually straight. It has a head, which is a glans penis, which is usually, it's supposed to be larger than the shaft of the
Sure.
penis, which is the stick, right? And you're supposed to have two testicles, right? So we just not ignore that one and not just expect everyone to know that. So if you're feeling the sack down there and you only have one, please get it
That's a
checked out.
problem.
That's a problem. You can have something that's called cryptorchidea, and especially if you have a young baby boy, please check that both his balls are down there, right? Because if one of them is missing, it means that it could be stuck somewhere in the abdomen, in the trajectory from the formation where it was formed until its descent, and that may require surgical intervention, right? So two balls, a penis with a shaft and a head, and you're supposed to have the opening of the penis at the tip of the penis. Now there are some deformities that has the opening of the penis either on top of it or below it, because it calls it hypospadia or epispadia, right? Which is a disease or a problem that also warrants correction. Deformities of the penis as well is also not usually normal unless you've had a previous fracture of the penis, right? But a normal penis should look cylindrical with a shaft that you are able to get an erection. If you've never been able to achieve an erection from um, ever, then that's something that you want to you know get evaluation
Get
for.
checked out.
hmm and
So,
if you're go ahead, sorry.
so I was gonna say, in terms of, so let's say that, how does a young man know if he's overall healthy? So, like for example, if something doesn't smell the way that it normally does, like what are, or maybe there's a discharge that is there that wasn't there before. How does he, determine those things? Is it that he waits to see if it goes away? Is it that he goes in to a doctor right away? What do you recommend there?
So for a young man, especially a teenager, burning when passing urine is not usually normal, especially in the adolescent period, the teenagers, once you enter puberty, because men don't get urinary infections that easily during adolescence into adulthood. All right. So if you have burning while if it burns when you pee, you need to come see me. All right. Um, Also, if you're having a discharge that is yellow, right, coming from the penis, something that's just oozing out, it's not a wet dream like you're sleeping and you have you had an ejaculation while sleeping, or you're aroused and you see the tip of the penis getting wet, which is usually evidence from the a sign of the ability of your body to be fertile, right? Then any discharge that's coming from the penis, especially blood, right, warrants an investigation. All right. Um, yes, and of course, if you're having an odor, if you're having lumps or bumps, especially water bumps, right? They call them vesicles. If you're having blisters on the penis, if you're having an ulcer on the penis, which means it look like you have a little cut on the penis and it's not really painful, right? That may be a sexually transmitted infection. And if you have some tough, flat-looking bumps on the penis itself or on the balls, you need to also get that checked out.
Okay. I think Trisha may need to have a show just to talk about the what a healthy penis is, and go into all the things that I'm sure Trisha would enjoy hosting that episode.
Thank
So,
you.
in terms of, so there's a neuroscientist podcaster, Dr. Andrew Huberman, that says testosterone makes effort feel good. So men, we already have an advantage here when making the effort to take care of ourselves. Make use of it. Take the small steps in your mind and then in your actions to become healthier. Our guest here today spoke about some practical things that we could actually do as men. Sometimes it's not in the big things, the major things, but taking the small steps and doing them consistently to see change in terms of our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So I want to thank our guests, Andrew and Dr. Whyte, for sharing. Any final comments, guys, that you want to say before we close out?
All right. Well, I mean, I'm just like every other man, you know, we learn things about ourselves as we go on. So we've not been through every situation there is to be to go through, right? And sometimes a situation may throw you for a loop. You may think that you knew and you didn't have a clue, right? That is the reason why you have community and you have specialists. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
you don't specialize in every area, do you? So you just admit that and go seek the help and the advice of the specialists, the persons who should and would know more than you do in any given area.
agreed.
Amen.
Thank you.
And
Any closing comments, Jermaine?
yes, definitely, I agree with. We learn every day. We don't know everything, and that is the truth. And we need help. No man is an island, and no man truly stands alone. And I join with Andrew in saying that we do need community. We need the assistance and experience. We need to lean on those experiences of those who have gone before us, who might have passed through these things before. We need to normalize saying, I need help, and acknowledging our emotions, leaning into them, and just getting the help so that we are operating on a platform of wholeness. Um, it really is a good thing when a man comes through the process or goes through the process of understanding his emotions and understand how life affects him, but also understanding how important it is to take the necessary steps to be better. And I think that's one of the greatest things that we can do.
Fully agreed. Fully agreed. And I know that I wouldn't be where I am now without my friends, right? So Andrew, Jermaine, I have friends that I can call out here. I won't say any order because I don't want anybody to feel bad, but my network of friends that I just call on whenever I need a second, opinion or something that I just need to share how I'm doing and maybe fellowship with a friend to just help and support each other. So thanks to you both again. Thank you for watching. Be sure to ask your questions. You can post them in the comments under the video, and just let us know. Are you experiencing any of the things that we spoke about? Do you have any questions that maybe we can forward to our guests? Just let us know. You can connect with our guests at their social media links in the description of this video. Please subscribe to this channel, share the link everywhere. Let's get more persons involved in the conversation. Let's break the stigma that some of these conversations have. And you can follow Big People Things on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Big People Things. That's bigppl.tings. Ask your questions about the topic in the comments, and we'll be sure to respond. It's our prayer that you found this show helpful, and we leave you with this quote. So, refuse to worry and keep your body healthy. But remember that youth, with a whole life before you, is meaningless. That's Ecclesiastes 11, verse 10.